Hey everybody, it's me again. Been slacking on the videos, so I apologize for that. But figured, excuse me there, figured I'd take a little bit of time tonight and cover a couple of topics. Had somebody ask about the inheritance of hen feathering, so we're going to start there. Now, hen feathering is not a trait I have a lot of personal experience with. I used to raise some Seabright Bantams back in the day. Didn't really do a lot of crossing with them. They were hatchery grade Seabrights though, so the males weren't that great. From what I've gathered, from what people have told me who breed Hennies, and also from reading a book, which I might have here real quick, 1 second. In case you're wondering, I am using a walker now, and I have my leg in a walking boot. Just it's late at night, and I get around faster with the wheels. So, but anyways, this book here, which is on Seabright Bantams, it can be purchased through the American Bantam Association. They have a brief mention of some university experiments regarding the inheritance of the Henny trait. And from what I gather, it is a dominant trait, but here's the tricky part about it, and I don't think anyone's really researched it super in depth, because I have heard of Hennies that come hen feathered straight off the bat, Hennies that get it after their first molt, and Hennies that start off Henny and go back to partially normal feathering or vice versa. But here's what they found in those studies. They found that the trait is, as far as they can tell, dominant, but only to an extent, which means that, to my belief, there are further modifiers which have not been identified. Now, the interesting thing about it is they found that it is not what they call sex-linked, meaning that it depends on if it comes from the mother or the father, so it will transfer to male and female offspring evenly, but it is what they call sex dependent, which means you cannot tell a Henny hen from a normal feathered hen. The other thing that's interesting about it is they noticed that there are higher levels of estrogen in hen feathered males. This in turn leads to lower fertility rates, and I believe personally that's why a lot of people who breed Hennies keep a couple normal feathered birds in the flock and mix them in. Now, that got me to thinking about some other traits that affect fertility, and I know this one in particular is going to be of interest to you guys who do postiza birds, and that's the rosecomb. Rosecomb birds also have diminished fertility, so if you're breeding rosecomb Hennies, you're probably going to have some issues with getting a decent hatch off them. Again, this is just going off of what I've read. Now, there's one other trait that's, well, correct that, there's two other traits that I want to talk about regarding fertility in your eggs, and these two have nothing to do with game fowl, but, as I've said before, this channel is not just about game fowl. One is the short leg gene. If you breed Japanese Bantams, I'm talking about them little short guys with the big combs and little stubby legs and a big tall squirrel tail, that short leg gene is lethal, and it causes, if I remember correctly, about a 25% mortality rate in your embryos. So you're going to lose 25% of your chicks before they even hatch if you breed two short leg birds together. Now, the way to avoid that is you got to keep a couple medium to long-legged birds in your breeding stock, but keep in mind only the short-legged birds can be shown. The other trait is the ear tuft and rumpless combination traits in the Araucana, not the Americana, you know, the bearded one that you get at the hatchery, which technically is an Easter egger, but I'll cover that a different time. But there's Easter eggers, there's Americanas, there's Araucanas, and I'm talking about the Araucana, which came from South America. So the Araucana, to show them, has to be naturally rumpless, meaning it's missing the last vertebrae that the tail springs from. So it's a nice smooth rump. In gamefowl circles, they call that a bolo. Yeah, I believe that's mostly a postiza thing or a Spanish thing. And then they have what they call tufts, which is not to be confused with a beard. A tuft starts right below the earlobe and swings out and back like a weird little wing. Like just picture a guy with a big handlebar mustache riding a motorcycle, how it blows back. Similar. So when you have that breed to show them, they have to show one of those on each side, equally matched, and be rumpless. Problem is, breeding two show quality birds of that breed together again yields 25% mortality rate. So you have to keep either a couple of them with tails or a couple of them that lack the ear tufts in your breeding program. Okay, I'm going to throw in a bonus one for you real quick. Frizzle. This one's real popular with the backyard flocks. And surprising to most people, it's been around a long, long time. I've got books from, what is that one book, from the 1700s or the 1600s? Probably 1700s. Anyways, it talks about frizzles. It doesn't call them frizzles, but the description in the image, it couldn't be anything but a frizzle. This is another dominant trait, but it's another dominant lethal. If you breed two birds that are frizzled together, meaning their feathers all curl backwards towards their head, what happens is you get what they call a baldy. And a baldy, just what it sounds like, it has hardly any feathers on it. It's usually runty and has organ malformations. So while it might not kill off the embryos before they hatch like the short leg gene, it is not something you want to be doing on purpose. Always breed a frizzled bird to a smooth feathered bird. My personal preference was, when I bred frizzles, to breed them to a smooth feathered bird that was out of the same line, because then genetically they had the similar body types, it was the same color, same breed, etc. And that worked really well for me. I didn't want to breed frizzles at first, to be honest, but I kind of got in a pinch at one point with my blue Polish, and a good buddy of mine sent me down a rooster who happened to be frizzle, because he let one of his buddies outcross into those and then cross back in, and that's how the frizzle gene got added in. And from that point forward, I was breeding frizzles alongside my smooth feathers. But that is what I got to say about those. Also, I want to take a minute and speak to one particular person that's commented recently. I'm sorry I don't have your screen name in front of me, but you brought up the points on one of my color genetics videos about how true gamefowl back in the day, and those who are still trying to preserve them for their original purpose, shall we say, disregarded color entirely. And I commented back that I believe that for the most part you're right, and in any performance animal, that is how you should look at things. I mean, if you're racing a horse or flying homing pigeons or whatever, form follows function. Colors just to identify what you got, you know. But given the fact that we are where we are legally these days, and the fact that there are more people starting to show these birds in poultry shows, and genetics, regardless of breed, are the same within the chicken species. That's why I try to answer these color questions. And I'm not disagreeing with you in one bit. And actually, and really what I'm trying to say is I want to thank you for bringing up those points, because it gave me an opportunity to touch upon that subject matter. So I thank you, and my phone just told me I'm going to run out of battery, so I'm going to wrap this up. Y'all have a good one.